Greetings, this is Earthman, Origami's Living Soil, hoping that God is blessing your day today, knowing that God is good every day. What do we got here? We have our potting soil that I've been talking about, the ultimate potting soil for indoor or outdoor container gardens. And the first ingredient that we talked about was peat moss. And now we're going to talk about Coco coir, which kind of looks a little like peat moss, but it's not, of course. And there is some differences between the two of them. First of all, Coco coir is made from the fibrous material that's found between the hard eternal shell and the outer coat of a coconut. It's treated before used as a grow medium for plants or fungi by soaking in a calcium buffering solution. Most Coco coir is sold for the growing purposes. It is pre-treated. You know, you'd want your Coco coir pre-treated, and once any remaining salts have been leached out of the core pith, that Coco coir bark is suitable to be used as for growing plants. So it's got a lot of good pros to it. Coco coir has a neutral, almost a neutral. It's slightly acidic, but not as acidic as peat moss. And it usually runs between a 6 and 6.7. The good thing about it is, unlike peat moss that comes from bogs, it's a renewable source, byproduct of the coconut industry. And it's easier to re-wet. It's not so hydrophobic as peat moss, but it's still good to use a wetting agent when using this likewise. Not as much as the peat moss, which is very much hydrophobic, but where you have to add a wetting agent, or when it dries out, it doesn't accept water very much after that, and it kind of like beads and repels it. In some cases, it's cheaper than peat moss. I'm finding around this area that it's not. It's usually around the same price, if not a little bit more, depending on where you live. Different reports have Coco has a pretty good water holding capacity between 8% and 30%. So that's kind of a wide range, but I would guess around 15 to 20% times its own weight. So it's right up there with peat moss. It's an excellent habitat for microorganisms. They really do love moving through it and hanging out in it. Like peat moss, it's free of weeds, seeds, pests, and pathogens. It breaks down slower than peat moss, so it lasts longer. Some cons of Coco coir, it's very high. It has a high salinity level unless it's properly washed, and so it can be very salty if you don't get the pre-treated. So make sure you get pre-treated Coco coir that's designated for growing. The quality can depend on where you get it and how much you pay. You get what you paid for. There's some good stuff and some bad stuff. It takes a higher fossil fuel cost to get it to the United States from tropical regions. But like I said, it's good for the environment compared to stripping our bogs from peat moss. It does not contain a lot of trace elements like peat moss does. So peat moss is better on that end. It has more trace elements and nutrients for your soil naturally, but Coco coir does not. And it contains no microorganisms like peat moss does. Might contain some beneficial microbes. So you have to be cautious on getting pre-treated. You should use a wetting agent when using it. And get some good quality Coco coir. Don't get the cheapest stuff you can find. And so Coco coir is a nice thing to use in potting soil, the ultimate potting soil recipe. So that's it. This is Earthman, Origami's Living Soil, hoping that God will bless you this day and the days to follow.